Alrighty guys, this video I'm going to walk you through how to set up your lead routing if you're using a GoHighLevel survey, and pretty much how to do it from end to end in terms of the booking pages that you need to create, how do you reroute your leads, etc. But first, I just will walk you through this document so we're all starting from the same page, and then we go and talk about the implementation. So lead routing GoHighLevel, the MQL scoring system. We've already discussed the MQL scoring system in other videos, but I'm just going to walk you through again, right? The difference between MQL routing that we do, that it's a little bit different than the other revenue, the other operations that I've been a part of, or what I typically see out there, is that they either route the call to a closer or a setter, or they disqualify. There's a point in disqualifying, but depending on your offer and depending on like the volume that you're receiving, it may not be a good idea. And what I'll show you is how to route the leads to the right closers at the right time, and what's the benefit of this, right? Because the lead routing architecture that we're going to be using focuses not only on qualifying the lead, but also making sure that your top performing closers talk with the best quality leads to maximize the quality of your operations. Because what's very, very common is that we add a new closer to the calendar, or we're scaling the operations. And then what happens is we start adding more people to the calendars. These people, they can perform or not perform. And for those that don't perform, if you don't have the MQL routing system, they could be speaking with highly qualified prospects that a top performer closer would close them in a pay in full. So we want to avoid this from happening. We want to reduce our risk. We want to hedge against our risk when we are scaling. And for us to do that, what we're thinking is, and what we're doing is, we're breaking down the funnel into MQL routing systems, and we're breaking down into 3 calendars or disqualifying the application. So the lead routing architecture, why smart routing matters, right? Not all leads are equal. Not all closers perform the same. The magic happens when you match them correctly. So here's the process. There's an application. There's the MQL scoring. There's a score range, tier 1 calendar, tier 2 calendar, tier 3 calendar. Tier 1 is the best calendar, and then we go down. Not necessarily one closer needs to be here, other here, or other here. Some closers can be tier 1, tier 2. Some closers can be tier 3, tier 2. What's important is that you can break this down for the new closers that are coming in on board. You're giving them the lowest quality leads. And you can also deny applications depending on the factors. For example, some of the accounts, if they have a medical condition, we cannot take the call. We have to deny these people, okay? And that's very important. In a biz op offer, depending, like a B2B offer, if the person is just absolutely broke, it may not make sense for them to book a call, okay? So we're gonna use the MQL scoring system to better understand that. So the results is that we increase close rates, we increase the cash per lead, top performers focus on the highest value leads, new closers practice on low stakes calls, and no time is wasted. Okay, so here's how we're gonna set this thing up. This was actually a mermaid graph, but I created this lead routing. There's the basic information that we collect, there's the scoring questions, and then there's the hidden score field, and based on this field we route to a different logic. So I've already covered in another video like the qualification frameworks that I like to use, like BANT, Banco, but this is just some examples here of like annual revenue, decision timeline, budget, authority, urgency, etc. And then depending on these variables, we're going to be putting the information. I'm going to show you what I do, at least on my funnel, and then you can do it on yours as well. But what's important is that you watch the video on the BANT and Banco framework to better understand how to set up your lead scoring. And then the 3 calendar tiers, each tier needs different treatment. Tier 3 calendars is just less qualified leads, less experienced closers. Tier 2, standard experience with solid closers. Tier 1 is just premium leads with top closers. So that's how you configure the calendar. You don't necessarily need to worry about this call length. We can just keep everything the same call length. It doesn't really matter. And then also the availability as well. It doesn't really matter. It's important that you have the same availability across the board. And we're going to be covering lead times and the importance of having good availability, and how to run automations to make sure that your calendar is only showing the right amount of spots, so you're not getting super booked out in advance and completely messing up your whole operations. Okay, so we're not going to cover this in this video. So the technical flow, it's basically this, where the person submits the form, the MQL score is calculated. Based on this score, there's the conditions that it's going to route them to different booking pages and go through the appointment reminder sequences. And the setup GoHighLevel we're going to be covering as well. I just don't want to like spend too much time just explaining. I'm going to show you. I think it's better. And then we're just going to go over and we're going to be able to track these metrics based on the MQL score as well. And yeah, the whole premise is that we're going to be collecting the data, analyzing the performance, identifying the patterns, adjusting the scoring, and then testing changes. Okay, so here's how we do this. Okay, so I've got here in my funnel, I've got the application page, and in this application page, I have my quiz. And then here's where people submit their information. And depending on their information, we're either routing them to tier 1 calendar, tier 2 calendar, or tier 3 calendar, or we are declining the application. Okay, so for tier 1 calendars, tier 2 calendars, ideally we're sending all of these conversions as well to hires, which we're going to be covering on how to do that properly. So we're tagging the leads in hires so we can see which campaigns are bringing in the highest qualified leads, so on and so forth. But in this video, we're just going to be covering like the actual implementation. implementation. So this is what you need. You will need 3 different booking calls, booking pages, and then 3 different thank you pages. So we're tracking the conversion for each specific tier. Okay. So, and then here we're able to send Facebook. Like if you just want to send tier 1, tier 2 conversions to Facebook, you need these pages to make sure that your pixel is optimizing for the highest quality of leads. Okay. It's not necessarily optimizing for tier 3 or the denials, because the bulk of your volume is going to come from tier 3 leads, especially if you're running cold traffic. That's just how it is. But you don't want to send all these conversions to Facebook, because otherwise what you're doing is you're increasing the number of conversions, but you're also giving the data in a way that it's going to hinder the quality. Because let's say if 80% of your leads are tier 3, then you're going to send 80% of your conversions. And then what's going to happen is Facebook, it's going to learn that those are the leads that you're looking for, because those are the conversions that you're sending. And it's just going to try to find the same leads for you. So we're going to avoid this by creating these thank you pages and just sending these 2 for custom conversions. Okay. But this is it in terms of the funnel. You just need to make sure you have 3 identical booking pages, 3 identical thank you pages, and 1 decline denial page. And then when it comes to the calendars, here you can create a calendar group with your funnel calendars, and they're basically all the same. The only difference is in the number, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And then you distribute your closers depending on their performance. Okay. So tier 1 closers would go here, tier 2 closers, tier 3 closers, so on and so forth. In the application itself, so whenever people are going through the application, what you'll need to do after you've gone through the video on creating your qualification, what you're going to do is basically you got this scoring here. So there's a scoring field where you will add into your form, score field, and then you're going to hide this field. Okay. And then this field, it's a calculation. And then what you're going to be using for your qualification criteria, you're going to be adding each question of the application here that is related to the MQL score. Okay. So in my case, these are the ones. It's their role, their revenue, if they're willing to invest, and how soon they're looking to implement those changes. And then here is what I got. So I have the application information here. And then you can see that what we do here is just going into options, and then depending on the answer, adding the calculation values. And then we're going to do this for every option that we want to qualify the lead for. Okay. So in this case, I don't have this for this one. If you want to enable, you can just click here, enable calculations. And then I have this one for currently monthly revenue, and then the role. Okay. The role in the company. Okay, so that is essentially, and then what you're going to be doing after you set up your custom fields and your scoring is you're going to go into open conditional logic. And then here, you're just going to create redirect to URL, and then you're going to create the redirect rules. Okay, that is what type of range do you want to send to different pages. In my case, if they're equal to 75, they're the top 25%, right? If they're equal to 75 or greater than 75, I'm sending them to the tier 1 page. Okay, and then I'm also forwarding the name, email, phone information to pre-fill their booking form with that information, because that is just increased conversions guaranteed. So if you're not doing this, you need to do this. Okay, that's just basic stuff that is going to drastically improve the conversion rate of your funnel. You can even split test, make your own conclusions, but that's very, very important point. So that is that. If it's equal to 75 or greater than 75, it is a tier 1 lead for me. And then in this example here, if it's greater than 50 and less than 75, I'm redirecting to the tier 1 booking page. And if it's equal to 50, I'm redirecting to the tier 1 booking page. If it's greater than 30 and less than 50, I'm redirecting to the tier 3 page. And then if it's equal to 30, I'm redirecting to the tier 3 page. And then everything below 30, so the bottom 30% of the leads, I'm sending to decline. Because I'm just launching this offer, I want to increase my ad bats. So you add friction, and then you eliminate this friction as you're scaling, right? Because as I'm scaling, I'm going to reduce the scoring so that I'm only not talking with like the bottom 10%, 15%, because that way I'm going to get more calls. I'm going to be able to hire more closers. These closers are going to take these calls. They're like the calls that are tier 3 leads, and some of these leads will convert. And here's the reality. The close rate for this pool, this segment, it's not going to be as high for the higher tiers segments. That's why like just saying that you have a 50% close rate is amazing. It's not. Like you're possibly leaving a lot of money on the table because you're not doing this, or you're adding too much friction in your process. And as you're scaling, you're likely going to hinder the profitability of your business if you're not able to take on more calls and talk with more people, even if they are a little bit more unqualified than your initial batch of leads. Okay, so that is how you're going to set this up in GoHighLevel. That's how it works. So it's pretty straightforward. Here in the funnel, it is the same process. If you're using GoHighLevel, if you're using Typeform, if you're using JotForm, we have already covered all of this for these other softwares, and you will always need these 3 booking pages, the thank you pages, and the decline page. Okay, so that is it for this video. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.